Hello, everyone, and welcome to MAC1105, Section 10 in the spring 2024 semester. My name is Ethan Williams, and I will be your instructor for this course. In this video, what I'll be doing is going over essentially a first day of class. We'll go over the syllabus, what's all in it, what information is there for you, and then also how the course is structured. In terms of where are your resources outside of class, how do you access them, what can you use, and also in the class, where is everything located, how can you get access to it, and all that good stuff. So what I'll do is go ahead and jump into it. Right now, what you are looking at is the homepage for our Canvas course. I am in student view, which means what I see is essentially what you might see. Up to some settings that you might change that might differ from me. But over here in the left-hand column, that's where all the options, all the menus that you would care about in this course are. I'll start with the syllabus and then I'll come back to the home page. So I'm going to go ahead and open the simple syllabus. And it should open right up for you and there shouldn't be any issues with that. And what I'll do is I'll just run through the main important parts here. A lot of these sections, especially down at the bottom, are exactly the same in all your classes at TCC. So really, I'm just going to focus on what's in this class and then a little bit about where are some of your outside resources located, what might you need for the course. All right, so go ahead and start MAC 1105. That's college algebra. This is an online course, of course. So, which means you'll be working essentially at your own pace throughout the week. However, you do have due dates for every week that you need to keep up with. So you don't, if you do all your homework on Saturdays and Sundays, that's fine. If you do it throughout the week like you would more of a normal in-person class, that's also fine. You have access to it 24/7. Right, so my name, like I said, is Ethan Williams. My email address is located right here, ethan.williams@tcc.fl.edu. I do not have an office location physically on campus, and because of that I do not have an office phone number. So if you want to contact me, you contact me through email or through Canvas messaging, which if you're not familiar with Canvas, you just hit the inbox here and you can create messages, you can email instructors and all that good stuff. Office hours are in the evenings, Mondays and Tuesdays from 7 to 8 p.m. Now, how do office hours work for an online class? It's essentially a time where if you email me, I will email you back in those times. I'll be available physically at my computer, ready to answer. If you email me at another time, let's say at 2 p.m. on Monday, I'll still answer in this time frame and no later. I might answer earlier, just depending on if I can. But in general, if you email me during these times, you will get a response very quickly. Otherwise, if you email me, let's say 8:30 on Monday, I will answer you sometime on Tuesday, no later than my office hours. If you email me Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, same idea. I'll always respond within 24 hours. The exception is on the weekends, so Friday starting at 5 until Monday, let's say at 8 a.m. If you email me during those times, I won't necessarily answer you until Monday evening. So do be aware of that. It's not that I'm ignoring you, it's just the weekend and I'm not available. Sometimes I will respond, sometimes I won't, just depends on my availability. And when we get to the section about the pacing and everything else, I'll talk more about that. So course description, won't go through the necessary details here. You can read through them. Some of this might sound familiar to you, some of it might sound gibberish, which would make sense if you've never taken this course or an equal level course. The one thing I do want to mention is the prerequisite and co-requisites. So if you took MAT 1033, which is not college algebra, intermediate algebra, then you need to have gotten a C or better. That would qualify you for this course. Or if this is your first math course in college, but you got an appropriate score on a placement test, then you would be eligible to sign up for this course. And it is a 3 credit hour course. Essentially what that means is if we were physically in person, you would be coming for 2.5 hours a week in class and then spending about 2 to 3 hours per credit hour outside of class studying, doing homework and that sort of stuff. So just kind of giving you a sense of timing, what this all means. That's in general for any course. It's not specific to math. Textbook, we don't have a textbook you have to purchase, which is a fantastic thing. It's included in here on Canvas. Now, one thing I will say is while there are textbook links, you don't actually need to use them. Everything will be available in a YouTube video or course notes that I've created that you can follow along with the YouTube videos. So it's up to you if you end up using that textbook or not. Might sound untraditional, but for this course, you do not need to buy a textbook, and you might not even use the textbook at all. Course outcomes, I'll read through these pretty quickly just in case it jogs anyone's mind about what we're doing and if you have some familiarity. So we'll be solving, essentially the bulk of this course is solving equations or inequalities, including quadratic, so things like parabolas, absolute values, exponentials, or logarithmic functions. There also is quite a bit dealing with graphing. So if you're given a graph, you know how to transform it and do all that good stuff using your formula. There is a section about actually using a graphing calculator. Now you won't have to purchase a graphing calculator, which I'll talk about in a little bit. If you already have one, like a TI-83 or 84, that works just fine, but you are not required to buy one. So if this is the only math class you have to take, and you don't have to take any more, I would not fork over the $100 for it. A TI-30 or some type of scientific calculator is good enough for 99% of what we do in this course. And the other 1%, you can use the free online calculator, graphing calculator, including on your tests and everything else that's available to you. So you do not have to buy it. I also find the online graphing calculator to be a lot easier to use than the handheld one. And then we'll solve some applications, inverse and composite functions, so properties of functions, and then we'll talk about domain, range, and other characteristics of functions and their graphs. All right, I'm not going to read through the general education learning outcomes. It's basically anything that involves doing math, that's what's in there. Same thing for the program learning outcomes. Course expectations, I'll talk about this a little bit. More or less, like I said, you can work at your own pace throughout the week, but the expectation is you work on the assignments that are due for the week every week. You don't want to fall behind. Falling behind, especially in a math course, is very difficult to catch back up because you can't just jump back into it. You have to make up the old material to be able to understand the new material. Math tends to build on itself, and that is the same for this course. So I have set this course up, which I'll show you on the homepage very simply so that you can just kind of scroll through it. Hey, I'm working on this section. Well, here's the lecture video. Here's the notes. Here's the homework assignment. Everything's right there for you. You don't have to scramble around and look for it. And then, of course, the idea is that you work on the homework to prepare yourself for the quizzes. The quizzes will help you get ready for the test. All right, so really, you can break down any math class in the same sort of cadence. You do your homework to get you ready for the quizzes. The quizzes will get you ready to take the practice tests and tests. All right, homework. So homework is worth 18% of your final grade. You will have roughly 2 to 3 homework assignments every week because we'll have one for every section. It's a little more heavy in the beginning of the course. As you'll see with the pacing, we do roughly 3 a week, but then after the first test, the material becomes more new. There's less overlap with previous math courses, and so you'll see more weeks with just 2 assignments. Now, you've heard this a million times in math courses, I'm sure, but basically, long story short, is the homework is there not only to give you busy work, because it's not really busy work, it's to help you learn, because that's when you do the learning. You don't do the learning on quizzes or tests. That's where you show what you've learned. So the homework is there to help you prepare for those assignments. And if you don't do the homework, in my experience, very difficult to pass. So if you don't have a passing homework grade, very rarely do I see a passing grade for the course. All right, quizzes. Quizzes are basically done every week except test week. They're due on Sunday nights. Homeworks are due on Friday nights, and quizzes are worth 9% of your final grade. The difference about the quizzes versus the homework, which I'll show you when we go through it, is the homework you can do a problem as many times as you want, but for a quiz you only have 4 attempts per problem. If you get it wrong all 4 times, that's it. Your answer is incorrect. So homework and quizzes, you can use late passes. I'll show you very quickly how to use them when we jump to the next part of this video. But if you've never used Lumen Ohm, which you do not have to purchase, it's already included when you sign up for the course. That's our online homework manager. It's also where you take all your assignments, homeworks, quizzes, practice tests, and tests. You can use late passes on the homework and quizzes, not on the practice tests or tests. Just be very clear. And what they do is they allow you to extend the deadline. So if you can't work on a homework by Friday night, maybe you're just busy one week, you just don't have the energy, you don't have literally the time, then you can use a late pass to extend it so that you can work on it over the weekend. You can also do this for quizzes, because it tends to have a snowball effect. If you can't work on the homework during the week, you have to make up time for it on the weekend. You might not have time to work on the quiz during the weekend, so then you might need to extend that deadline as well. But do keep in mind that you only have a limited number of them. While I give you plenty, probably more than any instructor does, you have to beware of using them timely. You do not want to wait till the end of the semester to make up some old assignments, because you'll end up having to use like 20, 30 late passes just for one assignment. And once you run out, you run out. So I'll skip through how late passes work. You can certainly read through that on your own, but I'm going to show you how they work. And then this is just some more information about using late passes. All right, practice tests. Practice tests are due the day before any test, including the final exam. So your tests will be due on Sundays in general, except for the final exam. Your practice tests will be due the Saturday before. The thing about the practice tests, they are worth a grade. They don't seem like a lot. It's worth 3% of your final grade, but it can make a pretty big difference because it's essentially 1% per practice test. So if you don't do any of them and you end up with a 78 in the course, but your practice tests, you would have gotten an 81 in the course. They're set up like homework assignments. You can do the questions as many times as you need to get them correct. And they are very, very, very similar to the actual tests. So they are the best thing to study, to work on when you're preparing for a test. Instead of going back and trying to look at 10 different homework assignments and all the quizzes, you can focus on the practice test. If you've kept up with everything else, it should be relatively straightforward, because there will not be any new questions on the practice test that you haven't seen before. I do incentivize a little bit. This is the only extra credit in the course. So if you get at least a 90% on the practice test, I will give you a 3% bonus to that test score. Once again, it doesn't seem like a lot, but with tests worth as much as they are, if you get the bonus on every practice test, that is 2% bonus to your final exam grade. So just think about it this way. You get 3% for the practice tests, and they're just like homework assignments. So there's no reason to not do very well on them, because you can do them over and over again. But if you do well enough, you get an additional 3%, which at the end of the semester will be 2%. So that's 5% of your grade that you can improve just with practice tests. It's not proctored. You do it on your own. You can work together. There's nothing wrong with that. And really no reason not to do them, because they are available the entire time of the test. So, day one, you can work on the practice final exam. I wouldn't recommend that, of course, but you could work on the practice final exam just to give you an example. There's no reason not to do well on them. right, so unit tests, they are the only assignments and the final exam that are not available at the beginning of the semester. You do have to take them the week that they are due, but I do give you the full week. So tests are due on Sundays, like I mentioned, which means when your test is due on the Sunday, it will become open on Monday. So you have Monday starting at midnight through Sunday night at midnight, essentially the entire 7 days to work on the test. You will be given 90 minutes and you will be proctored. So it's the only proctored assignment in this course is the unit test and final exam. It's the only timed assignments as well. You are expected to do it all in one sitting. You cannot leave, pause it, and come back. You need to do it all at once. And the dates, since the tests are very important and have a huge weighting on your grade, the dates are specifically mentioned later on in the pacing. So keep those in mind. The unit tests collectively are worth 45% of your grade. That is 15% each. So it's worth quite a bit, but also you have time, you have materials to help you get ready. You have the practice tests, which are just like it. The only additional thing, the proctoring service, you're probably mostly familiar with this by now, and unless it's your first semester in college. We do use HonorLock at TCC. There's not another service, so it's what we have to use. If you're not familiar with HonorLock, I'll just have a little FAQ at the end of what you need for HonorLock, but don't want to get into that right now. And then the final exam, basically the same idea. It's a little bit longer because it's a full semester and it's worth a little bit more of your final grade. It's worth 20% instead of 15. Now, the one thing I do want to mention is that if you miss a test, if you just don't do well on one of the 3 unit tests, then your final exam, if the grade is higher, it will replace your lowest test score. So it doesn't necessarily replace if your final exam is your lowest score. It's not going to hurt your other grades. I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to take one of your test grades and make it lower. It's just going to replace your lowest test score if your final exam is higher than that score. So once again, if you miss a test, or maybe you're just not feeling well and you take it anyway, a test anyway, and then you don't do well because you had, brain fog or anything else like that, your final exam can redeem that score, but only one. It cannot take the place of more than one. So if you do miss 2 tests and you get 2 zeros, one of them is going to stay. Right. And then for makeup test, the final exam really can't be made up just because it's due at the very end of the semester. So just keep that in mind. Of course, things can happen. You might not be able to take them for reasons that are out of your control. And I understand that, and we can work together, but plan on taking the final exam. For the 3 tests, you can take the test late if you have a reasonable documentation, or it can just be an excuse, but it's really not any different than an unexcused. It's temporarily a 0 until you take the final exam. So if you are sick, if you have a medical emergency with a doctor's note, if you have jury duty, anything else like that, you can read all the reasons here to why you can't take the test on time. Then keep that in mind and we can work together. All right, so course outline, we already talked about the topics. The important thing about the course outline that I want to mention is the pacing schedule we have here. So this not only gives you the pacing schedule, it gives you everything about the course as far as when assignments are due, any exceptional days, and things like that. So I have it set up, this pacing schedule is set up so that the date of the Monday is right here, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of that week. So Fridays are when homeworks are due, and these are the homework assignments that are due. In general, the last couple weeks we don't really have any homework assignments, so I just have practice final and final exam. Saturday is when either our discussion board is due on quiz weeks or a practice test is due on test weeks. Talk about the discussion boards later. And then the quizzes / tests are due on Sundays. So the first week you have a kind of syllabus introduction quiz, which if you watch this video, that's all you need to do to take the quiz. And then after that, we just have quizzes and tests. except the last couple of weeks, because I like to give time for the last couple of weeks to just study for the final exam. And also, you have other courses. I don't want to bombard you. So that's why it's set up like this. The one thing I do want to mention, and you'll notice the quiz 1, 2, and 3, is that they all start in section 1.1, which is the first section of the course, and it just goes farther and farther out. So the quizzes you take are cumulative inside the test. Test 1, for example, will cover 1.1 to 5.3, the last section here. And so each week your quiz will look a little bit more like the test. It's not as long, they're not as lengthy, but it's just to give you a reminder, hey, you did this 3-4 weeks ago. You may not have looked at it since. Well, it's going to be on the test next week. So here's a refresher. That's what the quiz ultimately is for. The only assignment that's not in this box here is an honor lock practice test. There's no math in it. All it does is it takes you through how to get onto honor lock to take our tests. If you have had to use honor lock before, but maybe not with a math course, it's probably done differently because of how we have to connect to the homework system to take the test. So just keep that in mind. And there's no math in it. It should take you 15 to 30 minutes, just depending on any technical issues you might have. Hopefully none of you have any, but it does happen sometimes. And it's better to get them out of the way on this test, this practice test, a couple weeks before your real test, because you do not want the technical issues to pop up when you're already worrying about taking the actual test. There are some other important dates here. The last day to add a class is January 10th, which is the Wednesday of the first week. Last day to drop a class and receive a refund, that's probably the big part here, is January 12th, which is the Friday of the first week. After that, if you want to do any withdrawing of a course, you don't get a refund, and that deadline is March 28th, which is right in here, week 11. It will be after your test 2, between test 2 and test 3, so you'll have a very good idea of where you stand in the course by then to make an educated decision. The holidays we have, Martin Luther King Jr. Day is on January 15th, so there's no class. It doesn't really pertain to us. You don't have to work on things on Monday anyway in this course. You can do them on other days. And then spring break, there's nothing due spring break. So after you take test 2 on March 10th, well, that's its deadline. Then the next week you have spring break. You don't have to think about anything, and you don't have to worry about a test when you come back because you just took it. So how is your final grade calculated? Well, I kind of went over it, but the one thing I didn't mention, discussion board. We have to do a discussion board as an online course. That's worth 5% of your score. Homework is 18, quizzes are 9, unit tests are 45, 15% each. Cumulative final exams, 20%, and the practice tests are 3%. So add out all adds up to 100%, and it's automatically calculated. The grading scale is pretty standard. 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89.9 is a B, and so on. As far as rounding, since we always get this question, I am a reasonable rounder. If you have an 89.6 or something like that, I will give you an A. But 89.1, that's stretching it. So in general, if you have the 0.5 or higher, I will automatically round it. Don't expect rounding beyond that. All right, so tips for student success. I will not read through this entire thing. I do encourage you to do it on your own. But long story short, like I mentioned before, I really set this course up so that you can just go through the homepage, go through the section, work on it, and then hey, everything's right there. If you don't get something and your resources aren't helping you, you can ask me a question. You can use resources outside of class, like the Learning Commons, something like that. If you have a private tutor, of course, do that. But one thing I do want to mention is that what I mentioned at the beginning, because the way this course is set up, it's all online. In general, you would expect to do 4 to 6 hours a week of homework on this course. Because we do not have an actual lecture time, you have to add 3 hours to that. So for this course, expect to work on it 7 to 10 hours a week. Some weeks might be more if you're running behind, or if it's a test week, you're a little nervous and you need to study a little more. Some weeks might be less. But in general, that's what you should expect. So don't expect to log on Sunday at 5 p.m. and do all your work for the week, meaning the quizzes, the homework, and the discussion board, all that stuff. Don't expect to save that all till Sunday evening. Some people, you might be able to do that, but most will not. Do all the work assigned. So one thing I want to point out is that 65% of your grade is either a test or a final exam, which is proctored, and it can be more of a high stress environment because not only are you proctored, but really it's more about being timed and you only get one shot at a question. But that means 35% of your grade is done in a lower stress environment. Homework, quizzes, practice tests, you can work on all of those by yourself. You can get some outside help. The point of those is just to prepare you for the actual exam. So keep that in mind. Make sure you're doing them all. I've seen plenty of times students will end up with a D in the course. They'll have a 50 on the homework and they'll have a good enough grade otherwise to pass the course, but you ended up with a 65 and that is a D. So make sure you're doing all that stuff outside of your tests. So as far as test structure goes, there'll be about half multiple choice and half fill in the blank. Your homework in general is all fill in the blank. There are occasional multiple choice questions. So in that sense, you do have your tests are quote unquote easier because half the questions they are multiple choice, and those tend to have better results because the answer is in front of you somewhere. So use all the resources available, course notes, lecture videos, my office hours, and academic resources outside of class. Email me anytime and I will respond to you within 24 hours. Like I said, the exception of that is on the weekend. And this is just me kind of wording out, going through how I would approach a week in the course. I think one of the biggest things that students struggle with and anyone struggles with is paying attention to a lecture for a long period of time. It doesn't even have to be school related. It can be work related. You're in a meeting at work and they're whoever's talking to you is just going on and on, sort of like how I'm doing in this video, but you can pause it as you need to. So my general advice is, in each section, you will start the lecture video and you can print out the notes, you can download them, or you just write along the notes of what I go through. I would do this in 10 to 15 minute spurts. So the average lecture video is probably 35 to 45 minutes. Some will be shorter, some will be longer. But even 35 to 45 minutes, that's a long time to just watch something without actively trying to do something else, or at least at minimum taking a break. My general recommendation is watch a couple problems, however long that might be, 10 to 15 minutes, pause it, and then open up the homework assignment and do the similar problems. So I've designed not only the lectures to be organized, but the problems done are in a similar order of the problems in the homework. So if you watch me do the first two questions of a section, try to do the first two questions of the section and the actual homework yourself. You just watched it, you followed along. The best way to practice is to immediately practice doing the problems yourself right after that. And if you can do it, move on. If you can't, just take a break. Maybe you're just a little fatigued, and then try again, watch the video again, or something like that. Whatever ends up working best for you. But to me, that's what works best in general for most students, but it won't work best for all of you. So I won't go through the rest of this. Basically, it just says once you work through that, if you do it 30 to 45 minutes a day, you'll finish very easily your homework assignments throughout the week, and then you'll be ready to take the quiz. The equity statement, that's the same for every course. Equal access and opportunity is also the same for every course. Americans with Disability Act, same for every course. The SAS office location, same for every course. So all these sections are the same for every course. The one thing I do want to say is that if you do get accommodations, just lost my train of thought here. If you do get accommodations for this online course specifically, the main one is extra test time. Make sure you send me that letter so I can give that to you. I can't just take your word for it. I have to have the official letter from the office. So do keep that in mind. Another thing I want to mention is that if you are dual enrolled, or if this is your first semester in college and you don't know what I'm talking about, but you do get accommodations in high school, that doesn't automatically transfer over. You have to make an appointment with the SAS office to be evaluated so that they can give me the letter that says you need extra time. So I can't just take your word for it. It doesn't automatically carry over. If you have only done this for high school and you need to do it for college, make sure you get that done. You really just want to make sure you have that done by the time test one comes around, which is in the middle of February. So academic resources, this is also all the same for every course. The last four are all about the library, which we don't really use for a math course. They don't have math books there. I don't know anyone who just reads a math book anyway. I personally do not. We do have the Learning Commons, which is your primary resource. So you can go to the link here. The QLess tutoring, that allows you to sign in and get in line for tutoring. And then BrainFuse online tutoring, this took the place, there's a link over here, as you can see, this took the place of Smart Thinking, if you were familiar with that. This is 24/7 on-demand tutoring. I would say in general, if the Learning Commons is open, and especially if you have to go to campus anyway, use that as your primary resource. It's always better to get tutoring help in person than online, in my experience. All right, so those are your three main academic resources outside of class. So I think of it, hey, email me your question. I'm your primary resource. If you need additional help, especially in person, go to the Learning Commons. If you need help on the weekend and the Learning Commons isn't open and I'm not available, then use your online tutoring. This class, since it's online, all the recordings are already available, so you don't really need to record. I don't need to go over that. The last section I have here is the attendance policy. So attendance, TCC mandates online courses. We take attendance once a week. Now what that means, what does it mean to attend an online course? It means by working on something. So if you did something that's due that week, you will be marked as attended. If you email me telling me, hey, I'm sick, I'm not feeling well, I won't be able to work on something this week, that's fine. And that will be count as attended as well. The only way you get count as not attended is if you did not contact me and you did not work on anything that is due that week. So I do want to make that clear though, it is what is due that week. So if you fall behind and maybe you're only working on stuff a week that was due a week before, I won't be able to tell that you attended that week. So just email me, let me know, hey, I fell behind, I was sick for a week, I'm catching up, and then I'll be able to mark you as attended. Course withdrawal, I just realized I did not change this date from last semester, so I apologize for that. The withdrawal deadline we already talked about is March 28th. In general, if you want to withdraw, that's up to you. The exception is if you just stop attending, if you stop participating, if you don't respond to me or the officers on campus, not police officers, but just the people that make sure, hey, we're reaching out to you because no one can get in contact with you. If you do not respond to anyone, then you will be marked, then you might be withdrawn as well. So just be aware of that. If you're not attending multiple weeks, if you haven't taken any tests, if you want to stay in the course, make sure you're responding to me or one of those people. All right, makeup work, pretty straightforward. You can make up your work because you have late passes as far as homeworks and quizzes go. If you need an extension on a practice test or a test because you have an excused reason, then I will extend it for you. You cannot use late passes on those, so you won't be able to extend those yourselves. Academic dishonesty, really the way you cheat in this course would be to, hey, I already took the test, here's the questions. Well, it's basically the same as a practice test anyway, so you're not really helping out someone, and you could get in trouble. But additional to that, you are proctored during your test, so if you break any of the rules, you know, you're using notes that you pre-wrote, you're not just looking at blank scratch pieces of paper. If someone else is coming in your testing area, then, you know, and helping you out, or if the person that's taking the test is not even you and that's figured out, then at minimum you get a 0 on that assignment. So, and you will be possibly given a referral to the Office of Student Conduct. So just be aware of that. Student responsibility. I'm not going to read through all this, but really the end here summarizes what I run into every semester. So I'm here to help. Ask me questions throughout the semester. I will help you out. The one thing I do not respond well to is someone that just wants extra credit because they need a certain grade to be able to transfer to FSU or something. You're going to know what grade you need all semester, and you're going to have an accurate reflection of your grade throughout the semester through the grades tab. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to just give you extra credit. I won't give extra credit. You can always make up old assignments using late passes like I've talked about before, but at the end of the day, if you need a B to get into FSU and you get a 78, and it's because you didn't do half the homework in the semester, that's on you, not me. You get the grade you earn, not the grade you want. All right, so that's the syllabus. That's most of this video. The next 10 or so minutes, I'm just going to go quickly about what's on Canvas, what's available for you, and that's really all we'll have to this video. All right, so the top of this, our homepage here, notes box, and so let me refresh that. The homepage has everything for you as far as assignments. You'll really only look at the homepage. Syllabus, if you need to refer back to it. You don't really need the discussions tab. It just has to be open because we have them, but the links are also on here. You'll use the grades tab just to keep up with your grades, and you might use the BrainFuse online tutoring if you want access to that. Study Edge, that pops up off and on. It's an additional outside of class resource where you can ask questions, but I haven't gotten word verified if we're actually using it this semester or not. So it's still there. It might be gone by the time the semester starts. You do not have to use these bottom two at all, Honor Lock and Quickly Attendance. Those are for me, but if I don't leave them available for you to see, then I can't use them the way I need to. So you'll do almost everything through this homepage. At the top, we have the student office hours. So if you open up there, it's just going to have the same office hours I had on the syllabus with my contact information and the same exact information. It's just separated there so you don't have to scroll through the syllabus to be reminded of this. You have the introduction video, which is this video, so kind of a catch-22 there, but you'll know this video exists before that. Your next one, you have online graphing calculators. So there's a couple to choose from. I recommend Desmos, and I also have a video of how to use Desmos. So if you click on Desmos, then it brings you right here. You can use this during the test, and you can very easily graph stuff by just typing in your equation. And you can do more than one if you want to. So you can just keep going. I have a video of how to use it and how you use it on the questions that we will come across in this class. All right, so you're free to use that during the tests. There's also a second option, which is more closely related to how you would use a TI-83 or 84, but you can also use this during the test. But if you have a TI-83 or 84, you would probably want to use that physical one. If you don't have one of those and you don't need to learn how to use one, I would just use Desmos. This is just here in case you'd like to play around with it. All right, textbook links. Like I said, there's a link to every section in the test book. They're all housed right here. Hopefully they're all still active. They were a little bit ago. There you go. So it will, it'll talk about whatever this section is. I clicked on the distance formula. It will talk about what the distance formula is, how you calculate it, and then examples of how to use it with some applications. You don't need to use that in these textbook links unless you want to. It's an additional resource, so it's nice to have, but it's not required. And then the bottom two here are just how you use a TI-83 to actually do the graphing calculator problems. So if you don't want to use Desmos, this will walk you through. This is a practice problem of how to do it. And then this is a basic functions of how you actually go through the TI-83 and 84. So even though it says TI-83, the idea is the same for the 84. The next little section here we have is the discussions. I'll just click on one so you can see how it works. So basically whatever we do in that week, that's what our learning outcomes are. You will make an initial post, which is worth 4 of the 10 points on Saturday by midnight. Well, you can do it before Saturday. And then you will respond to 2 of your peers by Sunday at midnight, and I will grade those. It's not super strict. You just need to follow the structure. Hey, these are the 3 bullet points for my initial post, and then respond to 2 peers. Try to adhere with the directions because it's helpful to your peers. If they're struggling with a problem and you figured out how to do it, and maybe you found a resource that no one else has found and it's super helpful, responding with that is very nice. It's better than saying, I agree this was easy, or I agree this was hard. That's not very helpful to your classmates. All right, but you have one of those every week. And they're all housed right here in order with their due dates already. So quizzes, I just have how quizzes work here. The one thing I did not talk about is that your lowest quiz is automatically dropped throughout the semester. So once you take 2 quizzes, even if you have 100 on both, it will drop 1, but it will automatically adjust throughout the month or throughout the semester. So I'll just show you real quickly how they work. I'm going to go ahead and open this assignment. You can just left click on it, but I always open in new tabs. When you're a new student, you have to just scroll through that. I read it. I agree. It's fine. You're not signing your life over or anything. And it should just load for us. It took a little bit. You can see this redeem late pass button, which the start button will not be here if you're past the due date. So if you just hit redeem late pass, it will tell you, hey, you have this many left. You can redeem this amount to extend the deadline, and you can just click redeem late pass. It will automatically update your deadline. But go ahead and click start. So the way the quizzes work, very straightforward, is that you get 4 tries per problem. That's what this number represents here. I'm just going to go ahead and get this wrong. So I've done 3, I have 1 try left, and my last try, oh, I got it wrong. I can't do the problem anymore, and I got 0 points. This little key will tell you what the answers are. Now, if you go to the next question, you can just see what happens. I'm going to find an easier one to do. So I'm going to show you what happens if you get it right. So I went ahead and just got this one right real quickly. The distance between these is this. You get your 4 out of 4. All you do, you just press enter or hit submit question after you have your answer. Once you got your 4 points, doesn't matter how many tries you got on it. You just get your points, and then you go to the next question, or you can jump around. You don't have to go in order. If you want to go to question 11 next, you can. But it will save that score. So if you're not timed for the quiz, you don't have to do it all in one sitting. If you want to come back to it, hey, I did it, but I didn't finish, I need to go back, then you can come back into the assignment and resume. It will remember everything. You got the first question wrong, we got the 4th question right, so on. Sometimes, let me go ahead and refresh that. What confuses students a little bit the first time is as soon as you started an assignment, it starts getting graded automatically. So I started quiz 1, which means that I have a grade in here for it. It's not a good grade because I only got 1 question right. But what it does is it doesn't prevent you from going back into the assignment and improving your grade. It's just telling you, hey, you started this. This is your grade so far, but you can resume it, go and work on it, do what you need to until you're done. You don't need to do it all in one setting. And that's the same for practice tests and homeworks as well. And so that's how the quizzes work. One thing I do want to mention for the syllabus and introduction quiz is that it's pretty much all true and false. And you get 3 tries at the quiz. So if you go through and do it, that's like, this first one's really the only one that's not true and false. I'm just guessing, I'm not even reading them. And I submit the quiz after I do all of them. It will tell you what the correct answer is for all of them. So if you do not get 100 on your first try, just write down what the correct answer is and then get it right. Okay. The idea is just for you to know this information. It's not to grill you and waste your time. The one thing I will talk about real quickly here, since we're on it, is for HonorLock, you must have a webcam, a Google Chrome downloaded, and HonorLock installed with a photo ID. So Google Chrome is the only browser HonorLock works on, at least at this point, unless they've updated it. You must have a webcam and a photo ID on top of those to take your tests. Right. So that's how quizzes work, and that's a little bit on HonorLock. Practice tests just have a little section here for the bonus I described before. But for the practice test, if I click on this one, and you'll notice there's not a redeem late pass button because you cannot use late passes. Just click start. And the idea is the same as tests or homeworks, even though we haven't gotten to it, is that you can work a problem as many times as you want. Now you get 3 tries per question. So let me show you the difference between quizzes and tests. So I did my 3 guesses. I got it wrong. It'll tell me the right answer, but you'll see this get a similar question button, and it just lets you work on it over and over again until you get it right. One nice thing about the practice tests and homeworks is that even once you get it right, it will save your highest score. So even if you want to practice a question again, it will save your highest score no matter what on that question. So I just fast forwarded here real quick to a question that I could answer quickly. I got this question right. I got my 4 out of 4 points. You'll see that right here. It's the recorded score. If I want to practice the distance formula again, I can do that. Okay, I just refresh it. I can check again. Let's say I guessed this time. Oh, it's wrong. Well, you still have your 4 out of 4 points. So just keep that in mind. You can do problems as many times as you want, and it will always save your highest score. So that's how practice tests works. When you enter the test, you will enter them through these links. They're not available now, so I'm not going to click on them. And now down here is where you will spend most of your time. So each section, there will be a homework assignment at the end. It will be like the practice test that I just showed you, except it's specific to the section you're in. So you can work on a problem as many times as you want. I got it wrong 3 times. But I can get a similar question and try it again. The additional thing here, because this is the lecture essentially, is we have a link for the lecture video. So you can open up in your browser here, do it however you want. What it is, it's just a video of me like this going through the problems. And I annotate as I go through. So not only am I talking, not only is there just the math written there, but there's some hints as you go through, like, hey, I did this because of this reason. Now the notes that I go through in those videos are actually right here in the next 2. The blank one is just exactly what it sounds like. It's the blank one, so it has everything written there except the structure of the problem. My recommendation is to print these out if you have them available to you to print. Otherwise, just write it down. And then you can go through and understand how to do the problems with the extra notes I have written. Now, I don't recommend looking at these at first, but I do include the filled out notes, which are just the result of what the lecture videos. So after the lecture videos are done, this is exactly what it looks like. It can be a little overwhelming to look at if you're not comfortable with the problems. So just keep that in mind. So here you can see, hey, this is how I solved this one. This is the steps I took. This is annotated a little bit so you can tell what steps I took. But it can be overwhelming. This is this first section. Some of it's a review of factoring and everything, but looking at something like this, even for me, is a little overwhelming without thinking about how to do the problem and seeing it done. So I don't necessarily recommend looking at this to start, just do it afterwards. And so, it's up to you how you structure it. My recommendation, like I mentioned before, is to open the blank notes or write them down yourself on your own paper, however you want to do it. Watch the lecture video for about 10 to 15 minutes and then work on the homework alongside it. And that's really all there is down here for every section. It's separated by the test. So unit 1 ends at 5.3. Then you just start unit 2, goes down to unit 2, then unit 3. Unit 4 is only one section. This is on the final exam, but it's not on any of the other tests. There's also some final exam review materials, but it's up to you whether you use these or not. I prefer the practice final exam, which is up in the practice test section as your primary resource. And so the last thing I want to show you, most of you probably are aware of this, but here's your weighting for how your final grade is calculated. When it comes down to the end of the semester and you need to know, hey, what do I need to get on the final exam to get X grade? You can play around with the what ifs. So if I scroll all the way down here, final exam, say if I got a 90 on the final exam, press enter, it gives me this what if. It would say, hey, you're going to get this on your final grade. This is obviously very incomplete and weird because I haven't done everything, but it lets you play around with your grade. It, of course, will not save that. So if you refresh it, it will go back to normal. Right, so now it's back to the 0. You haven't actually taken it. All right, so that's it for this course. If you have any questions after this, feel free to reach out. Happy to help. And if you have any additional questions, please let me know. Otherwise, good luck this semester, and I hope it's off to a great start for you.